Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Out of Your Own Way podcast. If you're new here, I post these every single week, and we talk all things wellness, from motivation to productivity, healthy living, business. I try to cover all the topics. So if this is your first time stopping by, I'm so glad you're here. And if you're back, what's up? I'm also glad you are here. Today, we have a guest episode, and it's definitely a fun one. It's an interesting one. I get to sit down with Skylar, and she is a military bad A. I'm not going to swear, but you get the point. She's just so committed, and her motivation and discipline is so commending. Like, you just look at her and you're like, wow, this girl has got it together. But she shares some of her difficulties, some of the things she's faced, some of the things she's faced in the military that you wouldn't expect to happen in the military. And her story really just motivates you to want to get on this journey and get on a health journey. So I hope you find today's episode super helpful. I hope it brings value in your life and that you take something out of this. So if you do, please message me on Instagram and just say that you enjoyed today's episode. And if there's specific topics or specific guests that you would like me to bring on, let me know and I would be happy to do so. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Hello, Skylar. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I'm very excited to sit down and chat with you and learn all about you and your story. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So would you mind giving our audience, before we jump right into all the good stuff that we have planned for today, would you mind giving my audience just a little bit of background of what your story is and where you've been?
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, I joined the military, so Army National Guard for Rhode Island. I never had the intention of joining the military, when I was in high school and they had the recruiters there. That was nothing I was interested in. But after 1 year of college and looking at student loans, I was like, okay, well, I need to do something about this because I can't be doing this for the next 3 years. So I joined the military. I still had a little bit of passion for fitness at the time because I played soccer my whole life. And so I was like, yeah, let's give this a shot. My freshman year of college, I did the training in between freshman and sophomore year. And ever since then, I've just been all in. I know people say it's 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year or whatever. That's what everyone says the National Guard is. But I've been doing loads of additional work with them. I love them. I can't get enough of them. But in the meantime, I got my undergrad in philosophy and health sciences. And then when I graduated college, I commissioned as an officer in the military. So my experience with the military was enlisting as a military police officer and then commissioning as a finance officer. And then now I'm a medical operations officer. So
nice. So you work for the military full time?
Yes, I do.
So you said that you always played sports and stuff, but then once you got into the military, that kind of drove is it what kind of drove you to be more into fitness and health?
Yes, because sports back when I was younger, it was always just like the camaraderie and the social aspects of it. That was the big driver behind it. It was never doing it to stay fit. And then once I got to college and I realized, wow, that was taking up a lot of my time and that was keeping me in really good shape. I need to do something else. So I was just going to the gym and then I started doing research and aligning it with the military too helped because we have certain fitness goals and minimums that we have to reach essentially. And we do fitness tests and stuff. And the minimums are not difficult, but having those kind of, biannually, annually, they made me want to keep up with my fitness. And then in basic training, you're with 200 people from across the country and they're like, all right, run 2 miles and time it. And so the competition in me came out and I was like, well, now I want to be a really good runner. And so definitely goes hand in hand. It's definitely not hand in hand for everybody. It's not like the military automatically means like you're really into fitness. But for me, the competitive aspect of the annual tests and trainings made me kind of look into it more on my own side, like personally.
Yeah. So outside of the military, like you do all that stuff for the military, what do you do for fitness like outside in your day-to-day life?
So the gym is my biggest thing. I've tried and failed epically at doing like classes like CrossFit or spin or Orange Theory or anything. Like I think they're phenomenal. I think they're super structured and I wish I liked them, but I don't. So I just go to the gym and keep up with my own little regimen. I've done a lot of trial and error. So people always say, how do you know so much? How do you know so much? Because my undergrad's not in like kinesiology or exercise science. And I don't have my any certificates that make me a personal trainer, but it's really just been what I've trial and errored. So I've gone to the gym. I've been that person with, bad form and not really knowing what to do and how to align my workouts. And it's just all over the years clicked, but it's taken a very long time.
Yeah. Would you say that the military helped you with your motivation?
Definitely, it can go either way, like I said, for people in the military, because we have long hours for our days and they're early starts. And we're in the field a lot of the time, which means like just going there essentially with your rucksack. And for a week, you don't really have showers and you're not exercising. You're just kind of moving around a lot and in the woods a lot. And so that's a type of thing that you're finding a lot in the military. And so when you get out of like a 10 or 12-hour shift or you get back from a week in the fields, you don't necessarily want to go and work out. But for me, I liked, waking up earlier than whatever the start of the day was, exercising, getting my mind right, getting my body right, and then going into the workday. So that's how it motivated me, knowing that I had those long days. It was my reset for myself, essentially, mentally.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And do you find that with fitness and health, are you passionate about like helping other people live a healthy lifestyle or help motivate them? What would you say like your passion is?
So definitely I'm a super advocate for helping people. I love when people come to me and not essentially have the wrong mindset on health and fitness, but come to me with these overwhelming feelings like I feel like I have to eat super healthy or else I'm not going to lose this weight. Or I feel like I have to go to the gym like for 2 hours every day, or else I can't ever be somebody that goes to the gym. And so that's when I love being like, hey, look, it's not that complicated. Like all you have to do is just eat exactly what you're eating, but eat a little bit less. And like that is going to reach you to where you want to be weight wise, or go to the gym. And honestly, for your first month, just walk on the treadmill and be able to digest what the gym is like and get your steps in while you're taking in the entirety of the gym. And like, it's really that easy. And I'm like, it's really that easy. So I love when people come to me and they're like super overwhelmed. Not that they're overwhelmed. I don't love that, but I love that I'm able to pull them down from that cloud. It's like, it's not a science that you have to understand in one day at all.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of people, or at least some people, come to you because you are so motivated, and they probably see that you're in the military, and that takes a lot of motivation, and then you are very active in the fitness world as well, and you have a great physique. So do you find that a lot of people do tend to come to you for those things?
Yes, it's 50%, friends that are looking for minor advice, like, hey, I XYZ, and it's a very specific type of thing here and there. But then also, I find that I have like complete strangers come up to me at the gym and they're like, hey, can you help me with this? And like that always never fails, takes me back because I'm like, why are you coming up to me? But then I forget that, bodybuilding and going to the gym is a direct representation of your hard work. And so everybody is literally walking around with like their piece of art, it's their
Yeah.
body. And so it shows their knowledge is conveyed with what they do and how they look. And so I love that too. Just minor things, people coming up to me and like, hey, is this right? And so I'm like, whoa, you trust me? But then I'm like, obviously you trust me because you see that I am confident in what I do here.
Yeah, definitely. And would fitness ever be a place that you would want to like work in or have people like paid people, or would it be something you would always want to keep just like just helping out?
So I've thought about this. People ask me this a lot, and I go back and forth because it is such a passion of mine, and it's honestly like my escape from the world. And so if I ever let it become something that was not necessarily work or like a job, but something that I did for income or did for that type of thing, I feel like it would take away from the aspect of this is my thing and this is what makes me
Yeah.
happy. So,
Yeah, I've definitely been there. Being a personal trainer is not easy because, like you said, it does take away your little bubble of when you're at the gym, it's my time. So when
mhm,
you start to kind of mix your passion with work, it can get tricky, but it also can be very rewarding if you're up for the challenge. But
mhm.
I definitely see your side in it all. So Have you ever experienced a time in either your college life or your military life or after? I think you're still in the military, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever experienced a time that you kind of got in your own way or got in your head? I mean, this podcast is called the Get Out of Your Own Way podcast. So I would love for you to share a time that you've kind of got in your own way.
So there's been a few times, and a lot of that has to do with little setbacks like injuries. So there was one time where it was a couple years ago, I got a slot for airborne school. And so that was huge. I wanted to go so bad. It's like a month long, and it was in the summer in between like my junior, senior year of college. And so I was honored that I got a slot. At the time, I was super into running. I'm definitely not into running as much as I was then now, but my goal then was like, let's see how many miles I can run a day. And so what you do a lot at airborne school is you run a lot. So I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to work on my running beforehand. But what I didn't do was listen to my body. And so I was running a lot beforehand rather than resting, because I knew we were going to be running a lot there. And then so on the second day, we had our fitness test, and it was a 2 mile run, and my knee just like gave out and
Oh, no.
completely like gypped myself from being able to go to that school. And it just sucked because I had to leave the school for something that had nothing to do with airborne. Like it wasn't like I couldn't qualify or do the skills that were required technically. It was just because I was running too much beforehand and like working
Wow.
myself too hard. So I had to leave early, and then I went back to school that senior year, and everybody that was there was like, oh my gosh, how was airborne school? Like I was the person that got a slot. And so it was hard to be like, I didn't make it. And it wasn't because I wasn't qualified. It was because I wasn't listening to my body. So for a while, I was scared to run again. I was scared to do something and go out on a whim where I was like, do I trust myself? Can I do this physically? So that was definitely for months after that, I was in my own way because I just didn't know what was safe and what wasn't.
Yeah. And how do you find that you kind of worked through that?
So I started to really rest and listen to my body, and I pretty much just wrote it off, and I was like, that was an opportunity that I had. I didn't complete it, and that's okay because more opportunities will come. And since then I've gone to military schools. I've had very rigorous physical demands, like 12-mile ruck marches and just constant running still. And so instead of trying to meet my maximum beforehand, I just, you know, keep reminding myself that my body is a machine. And so I have to go there rested and prepared rather than,
Yeah.
drained.
That's a really good point. Do you find that now, looking back in hindsight, was it kind of like a blessing in disguise? Like, if you had other opportunities come up that you're like, okay, maybe this didn't happen because now this happened in my life, or what was that experience like for you?
So that whole situation was definitely a blessing in disguise. Like in the moment I was devastated, but at the end of the day it taught me to take a step back and listen to my body. That was the biggest thing that I wasn't doing. And so, yeah, if I didn't get injured, I probably would have, left with the airborne wings and be able to flaunt that on my uniform for the rest of my career. But then I still wouldn't have had that realization that I am in control of whatever I do. So whether that be working myself to a pulp before I have to be physically tested, or be able to rest and take care of myself and be patient with myself
Yeah.
during any time.
Yeah, sometimes I think people like you and I, where we are very committed and motivated and disciplined, it can almost bite us in the butt until something like that happens to us. Because for me, I was very into training and all that stuff. And then I was at CrossFit and I had got a hip injury, which is so common for CrossFitters to get hip
Right.
injuries. But that was the point for me that I knew I had to also slow down and rest, which it comes with its own set of challenges. So it is pretty crazy how you can be on either side of the spectrum. Like you're either not into it at all, and that's what your challenge is, or you're on the opposite side and you go too hard, and then you have to tell yourself it's okay to slow down. So
Yeah.
definitely resonate with you and all of that stuff. But you were recently on a deployment, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And during that time, you had some negativity and just some conflict at that time.
Yeah, so this was my first deployment, and so it was 10 months, and it was with the same, 88, 90 people from Rhode Island. And so I didn't really know many of them prior to leaving. But You know how you kind of get that like cabin fever type feel when you're even like on vacation with friends for like 5 days. You're like, all right, time to like all go home and like pack our bags,
Yeah.
especially siblings. Like, when you're around somebody for that often, reality is like misconstrued because you're like, I don't know if I'm taking this out of proportion, or I don't know if they're genuinely just like acting in this way towards me. So this was very eye opening, this experience, because, it's a 10-month deployment. So you're working 10-hour days with people, but in, civilian life where you say, okay, goodbye, have a good weekend. I'll see you in 48 hours. And you get to have that break with your family and your friends and your hobbies. These people are around you 24/7. And so, you leave the work environment and then you go to the chow hall and they're still there, and you get dinner with them. And then you go back to your living area and they're still there, and you wait for them to get out of the shower and you wait for them to do laundry. So this whole experience with 24/7, people around me all the time was definitely eye opening. And so there was one specific individual, and I don't know if it was just them being jealous of me or targeting me specifically, but this individual had multiple complaints about them by just going out of their way to call out other people for their deficiencies and just not being a
Mhm.
good coworker, not being a good leader, very like bully like aspect. And so at first when I got warned about this individual, I was like, well, there's no way, because I don't let anything get to me. And then like here I was month 4, and I'm totally in my head about it. And
Yeah.
there was a bodybuilding competition while I was there. So that was awesome because I was able to participate in that. But I was sharing my prep and my progress with my coworkers and my friends that were with me, because they would see everything I ate. They would see everything I did, trained before and after the workday. And this individual was just always super, super negative. Like, you're not going to be able to do this. And there's no way that like you're eating right, because I know that you've done a show before and you get it. Like, the weighing the rice cakes and chicken is just ridiculous. And so I
Yeah.
didn't have that much control over what I could eat because I was only eating at a chow hall. So it was
Mhm.
a lot of eyeballing, which was very stressful for prep. But instead of getting support or for anything I did, it was always just negative, negative, negative. And so it was just impossible to escape too, because I couldn't be like, well, at least I go home Friday and then I'll go home to
Yeah.
my family. It was just always there.
Yeah, that actually sounds like torture.
It was awful. It
And,
was awful.
it does take certain people to be in the military, and by you just explaining all of this out loud, it really puts it into perspective for me. I am not that type of person that can be around other people like that 24/7. I mean, most people aren't, but it definitely takes special individuals to be able to be on deployments and do these kinds of things. So, I mean, we need you people so much, but like it really does just put it into perspective. I'm like, whoa, like I would not be able to handle that. Like I am the person that like needs to recharge her social battery and all that stuff, and you guys just don't even really get the opportunity to do so until you get to go home.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's definitely a lot, and it sounds like a lot of this person's bully behavior came from a place of insecurity. If they were doing to many, many people and they already had complaints against them, that sounds like it was their own issue and they were taking it out on everybody else. But it doesn't make it easier for you at that time. So how did you navigate through it?
So for a while, I felt super stuck. I started to doubt myself. I was like, well, there's no way I can do a bodybuilding competition while I'm deployed. Like, maybe this person's right. And maybe I am being a little bit too lenient with like my eyeballing and the chow hall, or maybe I am, not doing this or this or this right. And it was personal stuff. So like my bodybuilding and my eating, but then also like work stuff too. So you're not doing this right. And it's just like two completely different jobs. And so I started to believe everything that this person was saying. And then I reached out to other people that had more experience with this individual, and I just shifted my mindset on it. And so rather than taking, a piece of criticism from this person and being like, this is the truth, I tried to, break it down and analyze it. So I was like, well, why is this person saying this? Do they actually know if this is true? And I started to realize that everything that this person was targeting me for verbally really happened to just be insecurities on their own side. And so what happens is when people, are insecure, they put up walls and they find these things that they're, whether it's jealousy or anything that somebody else has, then they'll target them to just kind of pull them down from that stool that they
Yeah.
see that person on. And so I really just, once I took a step back, and especially now that I'm home, I'm like, it's honestly comical that I really let all of that get to me, knowing what the source was, that it wasn't me at all. It was just that person.
Yeah, but that is so valuable to share though, because I think even outside of a military perspective, a lot of people probably deal with that on a work-based level or in a relationship level. Like if they're in an abusive relationship and someone's always talking down to them and they're literally trapped like with that person, I think it can skew how you view yourself. And it's takes a person to take, like you said, a step back and analyze the source of what it's coming from, and also doing some self-reflection of why is this bothering me? Do I doubt
Mhm.
myself in these areas? And if I didn't doubt myself, then it probably wouldn't be getting to me as much. So applying the strategies that you need to be able to like not doubt yourself or like work through those things, I think is also an important piece to add to this conversation.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But moving on. So in your experience in the fitness world, military, academically, you being very motivated and disciplined person, when you see other people that come to you for advice and they are looking to kind of get out of their own way, what are the self-limiting beliefs that you see a lot of people have, the things that get in people's way?
So this is huge because like I love your like mantra, getting out of your own way, because I think that is step one. People are way too hard on themselves, like way too hard on themselves. And they don't know how to forgive themselves. They don't know how to treat themselves kindly. I know 9 times out of 10, and even I struggle with this, you wake up in the morning and the first thing you want to do is criticize, what you see in the mirror or what you have coming that day. You're like, oh, I have to go and do XYZ, or oh, I'm so bloated from dinner last night. And it's like immediately we start to criticize the things that we see about ourselves. And so what I always tell people if they come to me and they're like, hey, how did you lose the weight, or how do you stay motivated, or how do you eat healthy? I just say that you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to understand like that life is maybe a marathon, but the day and the minute that you are living is not a marathon. Like it's okay to just, spend a day and just do what you have to do to get to the next day. I think that people will beat themselves up so bad for one minor thing that they're never allowing themselves to progress, because they're always holding that boulder. Like they will not just let it go and move on.
Mm, yeah. Wow, that's so good. And what are some of the things that like kind of keep you motivated, like you personally?
So for me, and I know it's not everybody's fix, but my fix is obviously working out. It's therapeutic to me. It sets my mind right. So I don't know if people think this. I know people have asked me, but I certainly do not wake up every day motivated for the gym. Half the time I'm like, oh my God, I'm like in the parking lot. I'm like, I don't want to go in. So I definitely don't wake up like ready to go running to the gym. So if people believe that, please note that is not true. But after is always the feeling where I'm like, that was so worth it. My mind is right. I'm so zen right now. So what motivates me is knowing that I have something that's an aspect of routine that kind of keeps me steady and grounded every day, but then also, the therapeutic aspect of that good feeling after a workout. And so not only that, but everything in moderation too. So I wouldn't be where I am today if I worked out for 5 hours every single day, or like only ate chicken and rice. So what motivates me is knowing that like I eat ice cream every night, and like I'll tell the whole world that. And so knowing that I'm allowed to, eat what I want in moderation and take rest days when I want, and that I will still have the body that I want, that's what motivates me. And that kind of goes back with, taking care of yourself and being patient with yourself, because if I did get worked up over eating ice cream every single night, I probably wouldn't wake up and go to the gym the next morning, and then it would just kind of total into this big snowball effect.
Yeah, you don't wanna forget to live in the grand scheme of all of this. Because I mean, even with my mom, she does these, like, diets and stuff, and I
Mhm.
have to tell her that, like, you can still live, like, you forget to live sometimes, like, go out and have ice cream with your kids or go have a drink with your friends, things like that, because, I mean, that's still what life is about, and like you said, everything in moderation. I think, for some people that are getting started on their fitness journey, they do have to take some more extremes than maybe people like you and I, because
Mhm.
they're just setting up that routine. So I think that's important. But I think the the therapeutical aspect of it is also where my drive comes from too. I always know how great I feel after a workout, or how I can just be in my own little world doing my own thing, and that's
Yeah.
all that matters in the moment. So I think if you find like the internal drive, the external stuff will come like later on down the road.
Yeah, I love that, the internal drive. I know it's so true. It's like encompassing of everything that keeps me going for sure.
Yeah. And then I think, for people that are just getting started on their fitness journey, I always say find what you love to do. Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to just go and start deadlifting and squatting 200 pounds because that's what you see people on Instagram doing. Like, for some people, it might be just going on a hike, like going on a hike in nature or doing a dance class, doing spin class. Like, find what it means for you to be active. And then further down the road will the other pieces kind of fall into place. Like I just released a podcast last week where I said, like when I first started going to like Planet Fitness, I didn't know I was going to do a bikini competition down the road. I didn't know I was going to do CrossFit down the road after that. Like all those building blocks kind of come into place, but it's just kind of getting started.
Exactly, exactly. And I like what you said where, do what you wanna do and do what makes you happy. Perfect example, one of my friends reached out to me, like best friend for life, did middle school, high school soccer with her, everything. She's always reached out to me and struggled with her method of staying fit. And so she would try classes and she would try Planet Fitness and she would try like special gyms that had certain types of Pilates and everything. She's like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it all the years. And so I tried my best to voice, that you just have to find what makes you happy. And she reached out to me a couple days ago and she's like, Skylar, I finally found it. It's literally just bringing my dog for a walk every night. And I'm like, and that's all you need. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to go crazy. You don't need to have a membership anywhere. You don't need to be doing anything wild. Like if it's walking your dog every night and that's how you stay fit and that's how you get your steps in, then like that's it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's better to do something than nothing. And we also live in a world of consuming. So everywhere and everything is trying to sell us something. So we have to keep that in mind too, that we don't, like you said, we don't need the gym membership. We don't need this protein powder and this pre-workout and this and that to get started. Because at the end of the day, everyone's trying to sell us something. So just like you said, finding what it means for you and then
mhm,
stick to that and not be influenced by everything you see online.
exactly, exactly.
So it seems like you have a very busy life with the military, working out, your routines. How do you prioritize like your self-care and your wellness journey along the way of everything you have in your life?
So for me, I was very overwhelmed at first when I saw, especially during the deployment, like I had to wake up at 3:30 in order to get my workout done before the workday. And so it's in my opinion, like everybody has 24 hours. And so it whatever you do with that 24 hours is entirely up to you. For me, I chose to take a step back socially a little bit and be able to get those gym hours in and the 8 to 9 hours of sleep in and take those evenings to meal prep and get my food ready for the next day. And that was temporary. And obviously now I'm on leave after the deployment, so I have ample time. And so it's just so funny how times shift because I sleep in and I go to the gym and I have a very slow day and then it's already like 4 p.m. and I'm like, how in the world did I do the gym and work and meal prep and everything for 10 months straight? And now I go to the gym and it's in the morning and it's all of a sudden 4 p.m. So, you know, it ebbs and flows depending on what your demands are. And so right now my self-care is pretty much just doing what I have to do to relax until I go back to work again. But then in times of stress, like I know people have 12-hour shifts, overnight shifts, like work is crazy and everybody's occupation is very different. And so for them, if that means prioritizing their sleep 3 days and getting a workout in on their 2 days off, like then that's
Hmm.
that's how you have to do it. And so I think again, going back to, taking care of yourself and being forgiving of yourself, the aspect of overwhelming yourself is the number one reason people fail. And so if if you do work overnights and like you're a brand new nurse, let's say, maybe on your 12 hours off, don't work out and just sleep and make sure you have all your meals squared away so you're not stress eating and you're not eating vending machine food. And then just 2 days a week on your days off, go to the gym. And like that is completely fine. So being able to, maximize your time off and comparing that to work is definitely huge for taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I think whatever season you're in, you have to be able to adjust to that season. And I love that you're like, yeah, I have all the time in the world right now, but it's not always like that. I
No.
think that That is an important thing to tell people because, again, along with like what we see online, you see these crazy routines or what people fit into a day. And first of all, I just want to say it's like not real. Half the time, those are clips from a bunch of different days that people put together and be like, this is what I did in one day. Like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
You're
No.
lying. And you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So I love that advice. That's really great. And then I have one more question for you today before we end. And I always ask all my guests this one question. But what is your number one tip for getting out of your own way?
Okay, my number one tip, I probably already mentioned it in bits and pieces today, but number one tip for getting out of your own way is being forgiving of yourself and being real with yourself. I have a lot of people that have struggled with the same issues, that like friends that come to me for the past years, and they have the same issue, and I give them the same advice. And so I'm like, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot force it to drink. And so if you are stuck, and if you want to lose weight, or you want to start reading books more, or you want to start, going for walks more, getting more sleep, the sole person that can make that decision is yourself. And so even if you do it 2 days out of the week and you're like, wow, that was good. Let's stay here for a little bit. I can manage this for a little bit. And so it's the extremes that I think that push people away from ever succeeding, and also their self-limiting beliefs. And so people want to go from 0 to 100, but they don't understand that there are thousands of steps in between, and there are thousands of mediums that they can stay at for a long time before they get to where they want to be.
Wow, that is good. And I also, on my last podcast episode, I just kind of said something along the same lines of slow and steady is a big piece to your wellness journey, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure, kind of what you're saying. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. So just taking like one habit at a time, one building block at a time, and like get really good at that one building block. And then you can add something else onto that. It's when we try to 360 our lives overnight is when things just fall apart, and then we end up back at our default anyways. So
Exactly.
I really love that advice. And what do you have going on in your future? Like, are you going to be going back to work, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so full time I work AGR, so it's active guard reserve. So I know the military is a bunch of bogus, and I honestly still don't understand it. But like I said before, the National Guard is, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. However, AGR is the active side of the guard. And so it's quite literally the same organization. But, if you have everybody showing up for 2 days out of a month, there's no way that something's going to work. And so the best way to explain AGR is like they're the full timers that run the unit those
Uh,
29 other days that people are not there. And so that's what I do for the medical detachment. And so I'm a medical operations officer. And so everybody gets their doctor checkups annually, dentist, everything annually, civilian side, but we also require it on the military side. And so this detachment is where we get all that done. And so I help manage and facilitate that. So I'll be going back in September, and that's full time. And then I also do the drill weekends. And I don't have a deployment coming up for quite some time. So what happens is when you deploy, you go on get the well status. And so for like 3 to 4 years, you're kind of taken off the books, if you will, for being
mm.
put on a deployment roster. And so I don't have to worry about that. Minor schools here and there, which I'll always pick up and do. And other than that, that's it. Gym all the time.
Yeah. Do you have any like fitness goals or any like personal goals that you're working towards?
So I am getting my master's in Homeland Security and Public Health, and so it's completely online, and so it's ebbs and flows with how motivated I am and where I'm at in life. But I have like 3 classes left for that, so hopefully within the next fiscal year I can finish that. And then in terms of fitness, I'm very happy where I'm at right now. I've gained like all the healthy weight back from the show. People ask me if I want to compete now that I'm back in the States. I don't think I do. I loved every single second of the experience. I had a phenomenal coach. I had a great experience, but I just feel like it's weird because it's like a selfish type thing. Like I was able to make those decisions and get that sleep and eat that weird food because I was deployed and I was like alone. And I just don't know if I can see myself doing that and saying no to weddings and birthday parties
Mm-hmm.
and everything, because I already have to say no to that so much because I'm away. And so
True.
for me to be home and being like also no because I don't want to eat that food. So I don't know. I loved my experience, but I think I'm going to close the book on bodybuilding, and that was fun and cool. And I'll just keep doing whatever my body tells me I want to do.
Yeah, I feel like the book always like creeps back open on you though. It
Mhm.
like kind of like peeks open. It's like, you sure you're done? You sure? And
Yep.
you're like, I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm done, but right now that's my experience. Cause literally once every like 6 months, I'm like, do I want to compete again? Like maybe I do. I don't know. And then I'm like, I think of the full extent of it. Like you said, all the things you have to say no to and your
Yep.
whole life shifts. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. So
No,
it's always something that I keep like kind of going back to, but I don't know. Like you said, it's a huge commitment. So
it is. It's always when like the day of pics come up in like the camera roll memories, and I'm like, oh, so lean. But it's
yeah,
like, oh gosh, that's so not me.
it
Yeah,
can be mentally really hard too, like you said, because then you gain the healthy weight back, but that's a shift in itself.
it's
Like watching
huge.
your body change both ways, getting
Yeah.
skinny and then also gaining it back. It's two different shifts that you have to be okay with.
Exactly. Whenever I get tempted to look into it again, I just remember the day before where you were already dehydrating, like that dry feeling in my mouth. I don't think I will ever forget. That is the one motivator. I'm like, never mind, I don't want to do it anymore.
That's so funny. Where can everybody connect with you and follow your journey?
So I seriously don't post a lot. I'm really bad at posting. You are phenomenal at posting your like beautiful salads and workouts and stuff. I'm like, crap, I gotta do that. Because I would love to share, my diet and nutrition advice and like my 80-20 rule moderation, my gym sessions. I definitely want to work on that. So maybe that's another personal goal I can do. But everything is on really my Instagram. That's it. Sky Realejo. So yeah.
Everybody go follow her. I've absolutely loved this conversation today and just getting to know your story a little bit more. Loved that you wanted to come on the podcast. It's been such a joy. And for everybody listening, you can find me on Instagram at Sam DeSalvo, SamDeSalvo. Post episodes every single week, comes out on Tuesday. And make sure you just share this episode with somebody that may find it helpful. You never know who you could be helping by sharing this on social media. So thank you so much, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.